Chapter 1380 One Centaur. Killadoan faced Lancelot, and a fierce battle broke out between the two. However, when the top alien of mankind faced the general of the three-eyed tribe, he fell into a huge disadvantage from the beginning. Killadoan's fighting style was not fancy, pure violent aesthetics, violent sword moves, and agility that was inconsistent with his body size. His every move set off a huge storm, and even Lancelot, who was firing at full power, found it difficult to find a flaw. But even so, he still wanted to fight and attack Killadoan with the sword in his hand. Bang! Killadoan's giant sword slammed heavily on the protective shield glad. The powerful force caused the air to distort, and an invisible shock wave rippled in all directions. The land within dozens of miles around had turned into a huge deep pit that could not withstand the power of the two. Lancelot flew backwards, but used this method to unload the huge force transmitted to his body through the protective shield. His arm was a little numb, and he couldn't help but hiss. Is this the power of the giants? Such a powerful, terrifying race. His eyes became more cautious, and in front of him, a white giant figure slowly emerged from the dust. Killadoan walked towards him like a god, his face full of indifference and ruthlessness, like the god of death who pronounced death. Lancelot's mouth was bleeding, but he laughed up to the sky. The Hell Knight who fell into the underworld, dye the flag of the rebellious heaven red with my blood. When the angel's feathers are broken and fall to the dust, I will sing the hymn of doom with my torn throat. The loud singing echoed in the air with the ancient tune, and a powerful force burst out from Lancelot's body. The skill, Knight's Hell Hymn, was activated, and the hell flames around Lancelot became more turbulent, lingering around his body like a tornado, and black mist wrapped around his torso from his feet. Gradually, strange lines appeared on his skin. This repaired his injured body and made him stronger. He raised the sword of conquest, pointed it at Killadoan, roared, and rushed over in an endless flame. The Knights of the Round Table were already fighting with the kingdom army led by Killadoan. The two powerful forces could be clearly felt even from a distance. Jang carried a sniper on his shoulder and frowned slightly as he looked over there. The Burial Master, Gao Chongkong, and others were also watching. At this time, going to help might be the best way. After all, in the face of the war with alien races, the internal struggles of their human race can be temporarily put aside. However, humans have never been an animal that considers the overall situation. Gao Chongkong's eyes were cast on the Holy Spirit Temple on the zenith, and he slowly narrowed his eyes. While someone has attracted the attention of the Three-Eyed Clan, we can take the opportunity to enter the Holy Spirit Temple and look for the source of God. Qin Xiaojing asked, "What about Batu? That guy is now in Zhang Yi's hands. If he can't find us, he may be in danger." Gao Chongkong raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. No, it's safest in his hands. Because Zhang Yi is a very smart man, he knows that only a living Batu is valuable, and a dead Batu has no meaning to us. When we seize the treasures in the Holy Spirit Hall, I will pay enough in exchange. Qin Xiaojing nodded after hearing this, and no longer had any opinions. Gao Chongkong turned around and looked at the soldiers of the Xiaozha family who were cleaning the battlefield behind him. He said to the soldier leader Nima, "Next, you have to make as much noise as possible here. The bigger the better, understand?" Nima nodded solemnly. He knew that these people were going to be left as bait, but as a loyal direct descendant of the Xiaozha family, he was very clear about his mission. So he turned around and roared, "Kill all the three-eyed people here. Don't leave any. Burn all the houses. Let these bastards see how powerful we humans are." The voices echoing around him came one after another, and Gao Chongkong took Gu Man and Qin Xiaojing and left here quickly. They avoided the Nash soldiers along the way and headed straight for the Holy Spirit Temple above their heads. Looking from here, crossing the intricate stone bridge, you can step onto a long and narrow corridor that seems to be built in the air. At the end of the corridor is the entrance to the Holy Spirit Temple. But just as Gao Changgong was about to steal the chicken and sneak into the Holy Spirit Temple while other places were fighting, for huge horse hooves stepped on the black stones and appeared step by step at the end of the mist on the narrow trapezoidal corridor in front of him. It was a tall centaur with the body of a warhorse and the upper body of a three-eyed tribe. He was covered in silver-gray armor, wearing a twisted horn helmet on his head, and his thick arms like doorposts carried a long knight's lance on his shoulders. The moment he appeared, the air around him seemed to stagnate. Gao Changkong and the other two felt the fear of death on him. People who kill enough people have a breath called murderous aura on their bodies. This thing cannot be seen or smelled, but everyone can clearly feel it. It is said that every creature will instinctively release a biological hormone when it dies to remind its companions to stay away from danger. So, I don't know how many people this person has killed. He walked slowly, looking at Gao Changkong with a playful look. 3 people. A bug dares to covet the Holy Spirit Temple? How interesting. Nash General Carnahu, Lancer Centaur. Ability Index, 20,000 points, Black Chariot level. Gao Changkong's eyes narrowed solemnly. He didn't expect to meet the second Ypsilon of Nash so soon here. And this one's momentum seems to be more amazing than the previous Calijuan. Is this the guardian of the only way to the Holy Spirit Temple? Gao Changkong's voice was a little helpless, but his focused eyes showed that he was ready for battle. Another Ypsilon-level battle broke out. The momentum was amazing enough that even Zhang Yi, who was leisurely sniping Nash soldiers in the distance, couldn't help but look sideways. What a strong deterrent force. It feels like it's not worse than the Burial Master. There are indeed enough strong men in Nash country. Fortunately, most of them became stronger after the apocalypse. Otherwise, with the long-term effects, I don't know how terrifying they will become with their racial talents. Maybe they will become the Titan demon god in myths and legends. Zhang Yi was a little horrified, but he didn't care about these things. His team had the smallest target and the most flexible actions. Moreover, he didn't target the strong. Everyone he saw was his hunting target. Let the Burial Master, Gao Changkong, Lancelot, and others test the strength of the strong men in Nash country first. At the critical moment, Zhang Yi would take action. Chapter 1382, Deep Void. Sure enough, soon the Funeral Master also encountered a powerful opponent. In the name of Buddha, the Funeral Master, who was killing people, and the monks and soldiers of Songjia Temple and the private soldiers of the Yashalangtai family led by him, ruthlessly slaughtered all the Nash people in the middle layer of Nash. As the descendants of the Snowy Plateau, they knew better than anyone that as long as these people were alive, they would become a huge threat to mankind in the future. Especially the Snowy Plateau, it is impossible to keep them to grow slowly. If they break through the gate of eternal destruction one day, the Snowy Plateau will definitely be bloodbathed. The best result is that everyone becomes their livestock. The movement here also attracted another strong man from Nash. This is a giant who is more than 10 meters tall and so strong that his muscles are like steel. The eyes on his forehead are always glaring at everything around him, and his red hair grows wantonly in all directions. The whole person is like a burning fire. He appeared in the area where the Funeral Master and others were with a look of disgust. Looking at the several completely destroyed blocks and the three-eyed soldiers who died in the battle, he spat on the ground. What a useless waste. As a human being, you were killed by these livestock. You don't have the qualifications to be born as human beings. When several monks saw the red-haired giant appear, they immediately rushed up with a vajra in their hands. Seeing this, the red-haired giant grinned and showed a grim smile. He rushed in the direction where those people were rushing and punched directly, without any fancy moves. His thick arms were like stone pillars, but after this punch, the space in front of him directly vibrated, and then endless explosions swept across the entire street. Together with the monks and everything behind them, they were instantly enveloped by the extremely hot explosions. They felt a hint of warmth and pain in an instant, and then they were burned to ashes by the extremely terrifying high temperature. With one punch, the entire city was illuminated, and a street was completely burned. No one survived, whether it was the three-eyed people or the human soldiers. The funeral master put his hands together and looked at the three-eyed general calmly. Ba. Golden light burst out from his body. There was no killing intent in his eyes, but his attack was decisive and ruthless. Hey, come on, Bug. The one who appeared in front of the funeral master was another general of Nash country, Explosive Fist, Lie. The power index was 20,000 points, Black Chariot level. The battle broke out everywhere in Nash country, and waves of Ypsilon-level power rushed into the sky, making all civilians and low-level aliens tremble. Even Jang felt a sense of crisis at this time. Because those auras were too strong, even he was not so easy to defeat. Fortunately, I am good at defense. This made Jang feel more at ease. He was best at defense and running away. Even if he was facing a 20,000-point Black Chariot-level alien, he could still run away if he couldn't beat him. As long as I don't encounter that kind of perverted rule-based alien, or a superior time-space alien who can restrain me, I won't encounter any danger here. Jang thought to himself. However, the latter is more difficult, because both time-based and space-based abilities are extremely rare. Not to mention aliens with dual-based abilities at the same time. So far, he is the only alien he knows of who has them. As for the rule-based alien, it shouldn't be so easy to encounter an existence that can threaten him. People like Ho-Tu are extremely rare and perverted. Jang looked up at the sky, the huge Holy Spirit temple that seemed to be suspended in the air. Although he had a little desire in his heart, he just smiled. He never took the initiative to take risks, and he had to do enough testing before taking action. He would rather do nothing than make mistakes. They are all fighting against the strong, and I can't be idle. Just help them clean up this country more. Zhang Yi's eyes became cold. He raised the gun in his hand, and from a high place, he started a new round of slaughter. A special person with a supernatural power index of 18,000 points, who is good at long-range attacks, can't stop his small bullet, no matter whether the opponent is human or superhuman, as long as it is not Ypsilon. Zhang Yi could have used the weapons in stock to directly cover the ground with firepower and carry out a dimensionality reduction attack on a primitive country like Nash. But that was inconsistent with his low-key style of doing things, so he didn't do it. But at this time, Cheongda's voice rang in Zhang Yi's ears again. Your Excellency Chaos, Lord Zhangzhu, and others are fighting. Please let us fight too. We are here for the Holy War, and we would rather die in battle than stand by and watch here. They were kept on standby for so long, although it was safe, but they felt guilty. They are not people who are afraid of death, and once they return to the outside world and let people know that they hid during the war, they will bear the shame of their lives. Hearing this, Zhang Yi finally nodded and agreed. Okay, since you want to fight, then go and fight. Now he has a rough judgment of the power of Nash. The power of this underground tribe is far less than that of those under the Qinling Mountains. Just as Yang Xinxin said before. It is not the case that the older the civilization, the stronger it is. The chamber pots in the Tang dynasty were also used to hold urine. After removing the mysterious veil, the fear that the three-eyed tribe brought to them at the beginning has slowly faded. Zhang Yi asked Cheongda and others to come out of the shadow space. There were only a few dozen of them, and most of the 500 people with average strength were arranged by Zhang Yi to stay and clean up the battlefield of the Demon Kingdom. It was just because Zhang Yi believed that the number of people was no longer the most important in the Demon Abyss. Therefore, although there were only a few dozen people here, they were all the most elite part of the 500 people, and each of them was an extraordinary alien. They finally appeared on the land of Nash country, feeling the war and passionate battles all around, and the blood in their hearts had already been burned. Brothers, kill all these aliens for me. Cheongda screamed at the sky, and first raised the diamond stick in his hand and rushed to the Nash soldiers in front. Zhang Yi did not join the battlefield, so he killed them one by one from a distance. With his cover, Cheongda and others were unstoppable and easily defeated several teams of Nash soldiers. Afterwards, after confirming that there was no danger around, Liang Yu, Uncle Yu, Fatty Sue, and Huahua also joined the battle. Zhang Yi was very careful. He killed the most people, but made the least noise. In this place where communication is not well developed, it is difficult to attract the strong men of Nash country. However, perhaps because more and more Nash soldiers died silently, it would always attract other people's attention. At the moment when Zhang Yi aimed at the back of the head of a Nash alien, he suddenly felt the space around him go dark. The world in front of him turned into a dark void, and he himself disappeared from the original area. Chapter 1380, Three Devils Casino. Suddenly, the light disappeared from his eyes, which made Zhang Yi's heart alarm. What's going on? Am I blind? Or am I attacked? No, if I was attacked, my tracing of all things should have a warning. But why is there no reaction at all? Or is it that this is not an offensive ability but just blocked my sight, making me unable to see things and hear sounds? Zhang Yi's mind was full of thoughts, and he was more alert. He had already wrapped his body with the all things to prevent any attack from hitting him. At the same time, the voices of Yang Xinxin and others also sounded in the call channel. Brother Zhang Yi, what's going on? Why is it dark around us? We can't see anything. Zhang Yi heard the voices of Yang Xinxin, Zhou Kur and others, and he was sure that it was not that he had lost his five senses, but that the surrounding space had changed. However, he did not receive the communication from Uncle Yu, Liang Yu, and Fatty Sue. Zhang Yi quickly contacted them, but got no response at all. At this time, he immediately confirmed one thing. He should have been restricted by some ability and was pulled into another space. Space-related abilities? Zhang Yi's eyes swept around coldly, but there was darkness in all directions, and nothing existed. But the next moment, a ray of fire rose from the darkness, and then a piercing laugh came from his ears. Ahaha! A huge clown appeared in the darkness. He only had the upper body, wearing a black suit, a bow tie, an exaggerated red and white clown hat on his head, and his face was painted in colorful watercolors, which was particularly funny. Such a huge clown appeared in front of him, and anyone who saw it would be scared. But Zhang Yi understood that this must be a strange person who activated his ability. However, being able to activate the ability silently and drag him into it, it can be seen that this person must be very powerful. This time was different from the previous calculation by Batu. That time, Zhang Yi and others took the initiative to enter the trap set by Batu, but this time, Zhang Yi was directly dragged into the field by the other party. Hee. Welcome to the Devil's Casino. The clown let out a creepy laugh, and its huge eyeballs drooped, staring coldly at Zhang Yi in front of it. Zhang Yi was as small as a toy in front of him. However, Zhang Yi did not feel that it had any killing intention towards him. And, according to the feedback from the intelligence system, the words it spoke were actually Chinese. The image of the clown, Chinese, could it be an alien under Gao Changkong's command? No. Or is it some kind of rule-based ability that can be materialized according to the characters entering it? Zhang Yi was thinking this in his heart. The clown suddenly turned around and made an invitation. In the dark void, a beam of light suddenly appeared, illuminating an area in front. There appeared a stage with a diameter of no more than 10 meters, and in the center of the stage was a table covered with black cloth. Opposite the table sat a three-eyed giant dressed in white clothes and a white pointed hat. He slowly raised his head, revealing his pale face under the hat, and his slender eyes were full of smiles as he looked at his prey. Then he raised his hat, as if to salute Zhang Yi. Welcome to the Devil's Casino, distinguished guest, the man said. But Zhang Yi couldn't understand what he was saying. But at this time, Zhang Yi already understood that everything was done by the guy in front of him. Is this the rule of the Devil's Casino? The clown is a manifestation of ability and will explain the rules of the game according to the prey, so even if I am a human, it can communicate with me according to the rules. But I still can't understand the language of the three-eyed people. At this time, a mechanical voice came from the intelligence system. According to the language memory of Flower, the language of the three-eyed people has been analyzed and can be translated in real time at the same time. Zhang Yi has been in Nash country for a while, and with the help of the local human flower, he has collected a lot of language information. In summary, the intelligent system can easily translate the language of the three-eyed people. Soon, Zhang Yi understood the words of the three-eyed people. He looked at the giant three-eyed man coldly. "Who are you?" The three-eyed man smiled slightly. "Strange hairless rat. Don't you even recognize me?" His eyes suddenly turned cold, and his huge body leaned forward. "Or are you not a hairless rat from Nash country, but from the outside world?" Zhang Yi sneered and did not answer his question. But his right hand had already taken out the holy judgment. Just when he wanted to draw his sword, he inexplicably felt a force restricting his movements. This shocked Zhang Yi. He couldn't draw his sword. Not only could he not draw his sword, he couldn't even use his supernatural power to attack. This made Zhang Yi feel cold all over, as if he was falling into an ice cave. How powerful must the opponent be to have such power? At least 3,000 points. No, it may even be higher. He can't even make a move, so he can only wait to die? No, it's totally wrong. The aliens who fought with the funeral master, Gao Changkong, Lancelot, and others before were far from being so powerful. At this time, the huge half-body clown in the void explained, "Dear guest, in the Devil's Casino, the only way to solve the problem is to join the gambling game. Here, it is forbidden to attack the opponent in any way other than gambling. Of course, if you want to kill the opponent, you can bet your life on the gambling table." Zhang Yi heard this voice and suddenly woke up at his mind. It turned out that he was facing a rule-based alien. Can the problem only be solved through gambling? Zhang Yi frowned. He was not very good at this. He usually only played landlords and egg throwing. The three-eyed man in white clothes on the opposite side must be a senior gambler, since he has such ability. From the beginning, the situation was not favorable for him. At this time, Yang Xinxin's voice rang in Zhang Yi's ears. "Brother, as long as it is a rule system, there is a way to crack it. Gambling is a game of probability and psychology. With me here, you don't need to worry about this." Zhang Yi said, "But luck also plays a big role. Doesn't it mean that I might die here?" Yang Xinxin said, "So, we need to figure out the rules here first. Why not ask the clown next to us?" Chapter 1384. Betting on Yourself. Zhang Yi felt that what Yang Xinxin said was very right. Fortunately, the ability of the rule-based alien in front of him did not separate the people in the shadow space. It seems that when Mu Yan attached to his shadow, she was regarded as one with him. This is much better. When encountering problems in areas he is not good at, Zhang Yi can get help from his companions. Zhang Yi looked at the demon clown and asked, "What are the rules of the game here? Please explain it to me in detail." The clown laughed, "Haraha," and then said, "It's an honor, my distinguished guest." He raised his big hand wearing a white glove and extended his index finger. "Hello, welcome to the Demon Casino. Please follow the rules of the casino here and then enjoy a bloody game." Bloody. It seems that this will be a very bloody gamble. There are a total of 3 rules in the casino. First, everything here is determined by winning or losing at the gambling table. Both parties at the gambling table cannot attack each other in any way. Second, you can only bet with things from your body. Whether it is blood, hair, nails, or internal organs, you can bet. The corresponding parts will be exchanged for chips based on the importance of their impact on your life. Third, you must win 1,000 chips from the dealer to end the game. You cannot leave the game in any way before the game ends. After listening to the rules of the game, Zhang Yi frowned deeply. This rule-based ability sounds very dangerous, and it is actually betting with the body or even life. He never likes to play such a dangerous game. However, the man in front of him, the dealer of the game, is obviously a very capable rule-based alien. He can force him into the game. If he does not crack it according to the rules, he will not be able to leave here. Although he is reluctant, there is no way not to participate in this game. Zhang Yi looked at the devil clown. "That is to say, if I lose, I have to pay with my hands, feet, internal organs, and even my life. But he only needs to lose points to me, right?" The devil clown nodded with a smile. "Yes, sir. Zhang Yi cursed in his heart. Fuck. The rules of the game are indeed unfair, but after all, it is someone else's domain. Of course it is impossible to give him absolute fairness. After hearing the rules of the game, Luke Heron and others were also indignant. The rules of this game are too unfair. It's completely a black shop. If you lose, you will suffer heavy losses, but if you win, you will only get a chance to leave the casino. What's the point? Yang Xinxin lowered her head and thought for a moment, then said, but we are already in his rules, and this game cannot be played. Everyone fell into silence. This feeling of being dominated by life and death did indeed cover their hearts with a thick haze. But the next moment, Yang Xinxin raised his head, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. But there's no need to worry. Don't forget that the restrictions of the rule system are two-way. The more powerful you want to get, the greater the restrictions. Zhang Yi looked at the man across the gambling table and slowly raised his mouth. Not bad. Once I leave this game, he will be the one to die. Once the rules of the rule-based alien are cracked, their strength will be greatly reduced, and it will be much easier for Zhang Yi to kill him. In other words, as long as Zhang Yi wins enough 1,000 points, the man on the opposite side will have to pay with his life. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and calmed his heart. Isn't it just using my body as a bet? It's no big deal. He sat on the gambling table and smiled at the dealer. The dealer narrowed his eyes in surprise. Zhang Yi used the intelligence system to speak the same language as them. He was a little curious about how hairless mice could speak their human language. But he still said with interest, you look calm, but in fact you are already scared to death, right? He supported his chin with both hands and looked at Zhang Yi with a smile. If I lose, I will lose some points at most. But if you lose, you'll have to exchange your hands, feet, heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. So, you will never be able to sit here and fight me fairly. Even so, do you think it doesn't matter? Zhang Yi looked up at him and didn't speak for 5 seconds.
But soon he laughed.
Won't you know if you try it? But before that, I want to ask a question. What is your identity? The dealer looked at Zhang Yi for a while, then smiled casually. It seems that you really came here from the outside world. Remember my name, General of the Nash Kingdom, Senbamu. Devil Casino, Senbamu, a special type, rule-type alien, with an ability index of 19,000 points, white chariot level. Zhang Yi stared at Senbamu opposite him and asked calmly, how do you bet? This question is very critical. The gambling method of the Nash Kingdom may not be the same as that of humans, so it needs to be prepared in advance. Ask clearly. Senbamu raised his lips and began to introduce their gambling methods to Zhang Yi. There are 258 gambling methods in total, which are as follows. As a player, you have the right to choose the gambling method. Any gambling method that can become popular will not be carried out in a particularly complicated form because most gamblers do not have such high patience to learn how to play. Even between different civilizations, there will be commonalities, which Zhang Yi is very clear about. Even if he can't remember it himself, it doesn't matter. He now has a think tank whose IQ is not inferior to Einstein. Zhang Yi didn't think it was troublesome, but carefully read Senbamu's introduction to the gameplay. As he thought, many of the gameplays are similar to those of humans, but there are some differences in form. And those gambling methods that are too weird, Zhang Yi naturally ignored them. In the end, Zhang Yi chose a dice game. This is similar to the dice playing method of humans. The dice of Nash country has 12 sides, and each side has the number of Nash country. Here, they count according to the duodecimal system, but the intelligence system still translates it according to the decimal system for Zhang Yi's understanding. Zhang Yi said, let's play a game of betting on the size. I've chosen it. He chose the game method without any hesitation. As a pure amateur player, the more complicated the rules are, the more disadvantageous it is for him. Because the person opposite him must be a master. Smart choice. Senbamu spread his hands, and his face still had a smile that showed that everything was in his hands. On the table, a black dice cup and a 12-sided dice, as big as Zhang Yi's fist, suddenly appeared out of thin air. I'm very curious about what kind of education you hairless mice in the outside world have received. But from the perspective of probability, Betting on the size of the bet can at least give you a 50% chance of winning. But he leaned forward, his pale face under the huge white pointed hat revealing a mocking look as if he was looking at a toy. This also means that you have a 50% chance of dying directly. So, no matter what the outcome is at the gambling table, in this duel, I've already won 50% of your chances. Chapter 1385 Betting on My Left Hand. Zhang Yi looked at Senbamu in front of him and sneered in his heart. He knew that the other party was attacking his heart. If he was confused at the gambling table, it would be easy to make wrong decisions. However, this method is indeed very effective because it is difficult for ordinary people to remain calm in the face of life and death. The brain may even go blank because of fear and make operations that they cannot understand. But Zhang Yi is obviously not that kind of person. He never fights without confidence because he is a time and space dual system alien. Tracing the traces of all things can predict the future 2 seconds later. This ability can give him an advantage in the game of probability. In other words, he can see through the dice cup in front of him. Zhang Yi said to Senbamu, "In order to prevent cheating, I ask that the dice cup be uncovered immediately after I place my bet. If the time exceeds 1 second, it will be judged as your loss." Senbamu's narrow and gloomy eyes flashed with a playful look. "Are you asking me for something?" Zhang Yi looked at him with a smile. "As a gambler, I also have my rights. Don't forget, here we can only decide everything through gambling. If you can't meet my reasonable demands, I can refuse to continue the gambling." Besides, Zhang Yi's mouth showed a mocking look. "The dice cup is in your hand. You are not really going to cheat, are you? Or are you afraid of me?" This sentence made Senbamu's eyes cold. He is the noble Duke of Nash, and the hairless rats in front of him are just their livestock. Will he be afraid? "Although I don't know what you are thinking, I can agree to your request." He looked at the demon clown next to him. "Add this rule to the gambling table. If I don't open the dice cup within 1 second after he places the bet, it will be considered as my loss." The demon clown's eyes rolled. "Yes. Let's start. If the bet is something on the body, then hair is okay." Zhang Yi knocked on the table. He would not make too big attempts at the beginning. Of course, he had to test it first. The devil clown said, "The minimum bet is something worth 1 point. Your whole body adds up to 1,000 points. So, your smallest bet must be your entire nail." Zhang Yi looked at his left hand and said lightly, "Okay, in the first round, I'll bet on the nail of my left little finger." Sambam raised his mouth. "Okay, I'm going to start shaking the cup." He picked up the huge dice cup and started shaking it. He didn't shake it very fast, but deliberately made a loud noise in front of Zhang Yi, as if using this atmosphere to put pressure on Zhang Yi. If a person bets his body or even his life on the gambling table, his psychological defense line will surely be torn apart slowly as time goes by. Sambam knew this very well. He was a senior gambler. In the Nash Kingdom, he especially liked to hold huge gambling parties and then attract batches of ignorant gamblers to come and die. He enjoyed playing with people's hearts very much, especially watching those crazy gamblers, and the sound of desperate wailing because they lost everything was the most enjoyable, wonderful music for him. Zhang Yi looked at him coldly. "Everything follows the trace. Start." The ability has been locked on the dice cup. He saw overlapping images in his eyes, which were the changes of the dice cup after 2 seconds. Bang! The dice cup was pressed on the table. The images in Zhang Yi's eyes gradually locked, and he had seen the result after the dice cup was opened. It was 9 points big. Zhang Yi pondered for a moment, stared at Sambamuel cautiously, and said, "I bet big." Sambamuel raised the corner of his mouth, stretched out his hand to open the dice cup, and after seeing the points, he smiled. "You are lucky, you won the first game. It's a pity that you only bet on a nail. If you bet on your heart, you have won 1,000 points now." Sambamuel's tone was full of temptation. This is indeed very tempting, but Zhang Yi will not be fooled. The rules on the gambling table cannot be so simple. At this time, a scoreboard appeared next to the devil clown, and the point 1 appeared on it, which Zhang Yi could understand. It's better to be safe than sorry. I'd better be careful at other people's gambling tables, Zhang Yi said with a smile. The second game continued, and this time, Zhang Yi still won. But his bet was still 1 point, so now his bet was 2 points. In the third game, Zhang Yi's bet was bigger. This time, he bet all the 2 points in his hand. But unfortunately, he lost this game. The good news is that Zhang Yi lost on purpose. He did not blindly reveal his ability. If he could win twice in a row, it would be good luck, but if he won the third time, then Sambamore would definitely doubt his ability. So he needed to cheat. After 3 games, the situation on the gambling table returned to its previous state. The smile on Sambamore's face became even more intense. You seem to have worked in vain. If you continue to gamble like this, you will never be able to leave my devil's casino in your life. This sentence made Zhang Yi keen gaze. What would happen if he couldn't leave the casino? Obviously, the casino had a question that was not explained. What would happen if the person dragged into the gambling game didn't join the game? What would happen if the gambling game was extended indefinitely? Would it bring bad luck? After this thought came to mind, people's hearts would inevitably become a little impetuous, and they would subconsciously want to increase the stakes in their hands. Zhang Yi frowned slightly, and he looked up at the devil clown next to him and the scoreboard with the number 0. This time, he slowly stretched out his left hand and placed it on the table. This time, I'm betting on my left hands. The smile in Sambam's eyes became stronger, and the corners of his mouth were almost stretched to the back of his ears. Your left hand is worth 100 points. Come on, let's start. He shook the dice cup in his hand again, and this time his movements were much faster, and his eyes were much more fanatical. The sound of the dice shaking inside the dice cup was crackling, like pouring boiling water into his ears. Zhang Yi's eyes were fixed on the dice cup in front of him, and his fists on the table clenched subconsciously. After waiting for a long time, Sambamore finally put the dice cup on the table. Buy it and leave it. His huge body looked down at the little man in front of him, and his voice was like the whisper of a devil. This time, Zhang Yi stared at the dice in front of him, but he didn't say anything to buy the size. His clenched fists and complicated eyes revealed his inner struggle. Sambamore's voice sounded softly at this time. In my casino, no one has ever been able to walk out alive. Do you know why? Because I have enough chips, I can lose countless times. So even the fairest game, as long as it is played enough times, will become a 50-50 situation. But I have 1,000 points to use, and you only have your body to bet. Can you guarantee that you will always win in the 1,000-point bet? His smile became more and more ferocious. The more you hesitate, the more likely you are to die here. It's better to bet everything at once, so that you have a 50% chance of winning. How about it? Do you want to raise the bet? Chapter 1386 Rules Testing. Zhang Yi suddenly raised his head, his eyes full of disgust, and yelled at Sambamu, "Enough, shut up." Sambamu was stunned for a moment, then laughed instead of being angry. Ha ha ha, what I gave you are all the best advice. The further you go, the deeper you will fall. If you indulge in gambling, the more you gamble, the more you will lose. If you can't get out of it in time, you will definitely die here. The most terrifying thing about Sambamu's words is that he said everything truthfully. So even if you know clearly that he is tempting you to gamble everything, it can still bring you great pressure. No one has such a big courage to bet their life directly. Zhang Yi is of course an exception. Fear and struggle are only appearances, and he is actually a group of calm people in his heart. Sambamu's performance is also ridiculous to him, and isn't he accompanying Sambamu in the performance? Who is playing whom? It is not certain now. Zhang Yi took a few deep breaths, pointed at the dice cup in front of him, and shouted, "Big! Open it quickly." When he said this, Zhang Yi's eyes were fixed on the dice cup. Sambamio sneered and reached out to open the dice cup. And the moment his hand was put on it, the future that Zhang Yi saw in front of him changed instantly. He saw that the dice that would have been 11 points after opening the dice cup suddenly became 3 points. Sure enough, this gamble was not that simple. Sambamio, who had mastered the rules of the casino, could cheat. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Fortunately, he just restrained himself and did not bet everything directly. Otherwise, he would be wiped out by the rules of the casino now. Sambamio opened the dice cup, revealing the 3-point, and then laughed exaggeratedly at Zhang. "I'm sorry. Your luck is very bad in this round. Ha 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 ha." He laughed wildly, and Zhang Yi's face turned pale in an instant. In the shadow space, Zhou Kuer and others were also nervous. How could it be? How could Zhang Yi lose? He should be able to see through the future. Yang Xinxin said calmly, "Don't forget, this is his domain. He has mastered the rules, and he never said he wouldn't cheat. This is too despicable." Zhou Kuer said angrily and distressed. Yang Xia said worriedly, "If this is the case, then we can't win?" Yang Xinxin said, "If you want to win the opponent, you must understand his rules." She was silent for a moment, and then said, "The opponent is an Epsilon-level rule-based alien, the most dangerous and mysterious existence. You can roughly understand that the person sitting opposite is Guan Longyue, the Ho-Tu of Shengjing District." As soon as these words came out, everyone at the scene suddenly felt a chill on their backs. The appearance of the casino made them feel weird, and they forgot how dangerous the other party was. A top-level rule-based Epsilon alien is definitely the most dangerous among the aliens, especially when you don't know the rules of the other party's ability. Zhang Yi looked at the dice in front of him and appropriately performed an expression of astonishment and fear. At the same time, his left hand disappeared from his arm like a ghost. Blood gushed out, but Zhang Yi had already prepared in advance. The intelligent medical system of the combat suit was activated, injecting him with drugs, temporarily isolating the pain nerves and stopping the bleeding in time. And the left hand suddenly appeared on the gambling table, next to Sambamio's left hand. Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Although he didn't feel any pain, the psychological reaction of watching a part of his body appear somewhere else was still very strong. If he hadn't foreseen everything, he would have been broken on the spot. However, Zhang Yi was relatively calm. He sat on the chair, took a deep breath, and looked at Sambamio in front of him coldly. Like a gambler who is desperate to lose, he didn't say anything nonsense, but put his right hand on. "This round, I'm betting on my right hand, the nail of my little finger." Sambamio looked at Zhang Yi as if he was looking at a toy. Being cautious is a good thing. But if you continue to play like this, you have to win 100 games in a row to win back your hand. Although he said so, Sambamio still shook the dice cup. This time, Zhang Yi guessed the points accurately. Sambamio did not use any cheating methods. Zhang Yi thought to himself, there are two possibilities. First, his cheating ability has a limit on activation and cannot be used an unlimited number of times. Second, he is hiding his abilities like me. If I keep losing, I will naturally find out that he has the ability to cheat. But now, I have discovered his ability, but he may not know that I can see through the future. This is one of my biggest advantages now. Even if he lost his left hand, Zhang Yi's heart was still very calm. He did not panic, but continued to bet the only 1 point in his hand. Next, Zhang Yi controlled his winning rate to 58%. This winning rate can ensure that he will not lose any more parts of his body, but can continue to win slowly. Gradually, Zhang Yi's points reached 12 points. Although there is still a long way to go before he can win back his left hand and leave the Devil's Casino, his winning rate is obviously more than 50%, and Sambamio, as a gambler himself, could sense it. He continued to stimulate Zhang Yi with words, hoping that Zhang Yi would invest more bets to play the game. Zhang Yi cooperated very well. After hesitating for a while, he chose to bet 5 points at a time. This time, he guessed the points, but Sambamio won again by cheating. Zhang Yi was patient. Slowly, Sambamio's ability rule fragments were pieced together, just waiting for his ability puzzle to be completely pieced together, which was the moment for Zhang Yi to fight back. The gambling continued, and soon, all 100 games were finished. Since Zhang Yi lost his left hand, he has never lost any part of his body. This made Sambamio's face gradually become solemn. Even if he had the advantage, he couldn't take down the hairless mouse in front of him for a long time, which made him, who was proud of his gambling skills, unacceptable in his heart. Zhang Yi's points in his hand have reached more than 20 points, and have been fluctuating steadily. And since he has the capital, he naturally refuses to gamble on his body parts. Senbama felt that this was extremely boring. He couldn't get the happiness he longed for without seeing his opponent's body broken into pieces. It's really boring to play like this. I might as well change the rules of the game. He pointed at Jang. From now on, if you bet your limbs and internal organs, I can let you get twice the points if you win. So, don't always bet your points against me, how about it? Jang had a hint of excitement on his face, but he was already laughing in his heart. It seemed that someone was more anxious than him. Chapter 1387 Cheating. Jang looked at Senbama calmly. I know you are anxious, but don't be anxious yet. It's my hands and feet that are being bet, not yours. So, of course, I have to be careful. Senbama seemed to realize that he was too hasty, which is taboo at the gambling table. He quickly recovered his emotions and smiled faintly. I'm afraid you will die from excessive blood loss. It's not so easy for an Epsilon-level alien to die. Jang said faintly. Senbama couldn't understand the technological products such as combat uniforms, which was also the advantage of the information gap that Jang had. However, Jang also knew that if he didn't bet big enough, Senbama would not use the cheating ability. In this way, Jang couldn't get more rule fragments. So he said, but your proposal really makes me very excited. So good. This time, I'll bet on my right foot. Senbama's face, a smug smile reappeared. He said in his heart, I know that when everyone sits at the gambling table, he will definitely fall into the vortex of crazy gambling, and no one can be an exception. The winner feels that he is lucky and wants to win more. The loser wants to turn the tables quickly. No one is exempt. Well, I'm going to shake the dice cup. Senbama picked up the dice cup in his hand and began to shake it. Jang's eyes were fixed on Senbama's right hand. After he shook it for a while, the dice cup fell on the table. The number was 5. I bet on small. Jang stared at the dice cup, looked up at Senbama's eyes, and said calmly. Being stared at by Jang like this, Senbama was a little confused. Could it be that this guy saw that I was cheating? Haha, even if he saw it, what can I do? I'll take your right foot. He stretched out his hand to uncover the dice cup, and the number on the front of the dice was 12. Senbama showed an exaggerated smile on his face and laughed. What a pity. This time you lose again. Your right foot is also mine. Jang's right foot also disappeared in the same way and then appeared on the empty space on the table next to Senbama's hand. There was no expression on his face, and it was hard to tell what he was thinking. Senbama suddenly pressed his hands hard on the table, tilted his head, and looked at Jang with a teasing look. How miserable. Now you only have one hand and one foot. I'll give you another chance. This time you bet on your left hand. If you win, I can return your hands and feet and give you 500 points. How about it? Do you dare to play? Jang raised his head and stared at Senbama. After looking at him for a long time, he actually nodded slowly. Okay. Senbama was stunned for a moment. He thought Jang would go crazy, blushing, painful, and tangled, but he didn't expect Jang to agree so calmly. Oh, I underestimated you a little, he said faintly. Jang looked at him without any expression. You really underestimated me. Senbama was stunned. But just as he was stunned, in the Dark Devil's casino, a dark hole suddenly appeared in the void beside Jang. Then, a beautiful woman in a white coat walked out from it. Zhou Kutter came to Jang and placed her hands on his broken arm with tenderness and some heartache. A ball of white light emerged from her palm. The next moment, Jang frowned slightly, and from his broken arm, flesh and bones grew out in a strange way. Although the pain nerves were blocked, the feeling of rapid cell division and large-scale regeneration of flesh and blood still made his body a little uncomfortable. Such a scene made Senbama stare wide-eyed, and he couldn't believe what he saw. What? Zhou Kutter used the same method to regenerate Jang's right foot. The new limb was a little pale, but under the ability of flesh and blood transformation, it was no different from the original one. Zhou Ke, a medical-related mutant with a superpower index of 9,000 points. For her, flesh and blood regeneration is just a basic operation, especially the regeneration of non-vital parts such as hands and feet, which can be done by stimulating cells to regenerate through superpowers. From the beginning, when Zhang Yi knew that this gamble would require the sacrifice of body parts, he planned everything. Therefore, he was not worried about being cut into pieces. After Zhou Ke finished, Yang Xia also came out of the shadow space and brought him supernatural food to restore his supernatural power and physical strength. After all, he had just recovered and needed to replenish his energy. The two beauties stood beside Zhang Yi and served him attentively. Senbamu was already dumbfounded. Where did they come from? Why did they appear in my casino? He roared angrily. After having this ability, every time he didn't play with others in his hands? This was the first time that the situation was out of his control. Control made him furious. You cheated. You totally cheated. He pointed at Zhang Yi and said angrily, You lose, and you have to pay with your life. But why can you regenerate? Zhang Yi looked at him calmly, with a bit of mockery in his eyes. Didn't you make the rules? I didn't break the rules of the game. And, speaking of cheating, his mocking look became even more intense. Didn't you cheat first? Senbamu's words paused, and his eyes immediately turned cold. It seems that you already know my ability. Zhang Yi said, No one should treat anyone as a fool. He stretched out his newly grown left hand to Senbamu now. Do you still want my arm? Just take it as many as you want. This sentence is of course a bit exaggerated, and the number of cell divisions is also limited. It's just that with the help of medical aliens, it can break through the physical limitations of ordinary people. However, it is completely enough to deal with this gambling game. Senbamu gritted his teeth, and his pale face, the originally weird facial features, were completely distorted at this time. Well, let's continue. But you have no chance to beat me. Zhang Yi remained silent, just looking at him with an extremely calm look. It was this unmoved look that made Senbamu the most angry. He shook the dice cup vigorously, and the number in the dice cup was 7. Zhang Yi looked up at him and said, This time, it's 7. Zhang Yi directly said the number. Senbamu's pupils shrank suddenly. Because the dice game in Nash country also has a rule of directly guessing the number, and once the guess is correct, you can directly get a reward of 10 times the bet. Zhang Yi not only guessed the number, but also directly told Senbamu that he could see through his dice cup. Chapter 1388. Defeat. Senbamu's hand froze in midair, but he quickly came to his senses and quickly uncovered the dice cup. Because according to the rules, if he could not uncover the dice cup within 1 second of Zhang Yi's bet, he would lose. And the points after uncovering it had been changed to 1 point. Zhang Yi lost his left hand, but a victorious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He looked at Senbamu, whose skin became paler due to impatience. You cheated. Zhang Yi's left hand was taken away again, but Zhou Ke quickly regenerated one for him. Hands and feet are much easier to regenerate than internal organs, and it will not affect life, so it is not difficult to heal. Senbamu already felt that the situation was beyond his control. He looked at Zhang Yi coldly. You are talking nonsense. Zhang Yi said, My eyes can see through things. He pointed at his own eyes with 2 fingers, and then pointed at the dice cup. So I saw you cheating from the beginning. Don't think you can control the situation. In fact, I am just playing with you. Senbamu stared at Zhang Yi with a vicious look, as if he wanted to eat him. As a master who is famous for his gambling skills, it is a great humiliation to be caught cheating on the spot and deliberately play with him for so long. However, Senbamu quickly calmed down. I cheated, but what can I do? He stretched out his hand and pushed the dice cup in front of him. The rules of the game only look at the result after the dice cup is opened, so before the dice cup is opened, we can use any means at will. This is his home court. He is the maker of the rules. Even if he cheats, it will be within the scope allowed by the rules. Zhou Ke frowned and cursed. Despicable, shameless. Although Senbamu didn't understand Zhou Ke's words, he could guess what she was saying. he said disapprovingly. When did you think the casino would play a fair game with you? Zhang Yi nodded. You're right. So please let us continue. This game is very interesting, and I like it very much. Senbama looked at Zhang Yi and asked in a deep voice, even if you know you can't win, do you still want to continue playing? I don't believe that your method of regenerating flesh and blood can be used infinitely. Zhang Yi laughed. You're right. This method can't be used all the time. But can you use your method all the time? Zhang Yi looked at Senbama's eyes, narrowed his eyes, and said slowly, I deliberately tested you for more than 100 games, and you activated your ability 16 times to win me. If you can use your ability infinitely, I would have been finished even if I only lost one fingernail each time. But I know that the rule system is not invincible. Even you, the maker of the rules, will be constrained. There must be a way to break it, Zhang Yi said, pointing his finger at Senbama. So, your ability is also limited. Come on, I will directly guess the number of the dice in each game from now on. Unless you activate your ability in every game, I will directly win the game. I want to see how long you can hold on. The expression on Senbama's face froze. At the same time, the demon clown next to him laughed loudly. Congratulations, you won this bet. Now, the game is over. The rules of the game have been broken, the winner has been decided, and there is no suspense. The dark void in front of him shattered instantly. Zhang Yi and his men appeared directly on the broken streets of Nash country. This place had been destroyed by war at this time. The soldiers of Nash country were fighting fiercely with human soldiers. There were corpses everywhere, houses collapsed, flames were burning in the sky above several streets, and thick smoke was billowing. Zhang Yi immediately took Zhou Kuer and Yang Xia into Mu Yan's shadow space. Next, he needed to face off with the three-eyed general in white clothes in front of him. After the rules of the rule-based aliens were broken, how much strength do they still have? I'm looking forward to it. Zhang Yi didn't say a word of nonsense. He directly pulled out the huge pistol White Owl, aimed at Senbama at the other end of the street, and quickly pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 The bullets roared, and they came to Senbama in an instant with the powerful power of the void. Senbama seemed to be in a trance because he lost the bet. But on the battlefield, the enemy would not leave him time to feel sad. He suddenly raised his head, grinned with a ferocious mouth, and his laughter resounded throughout the street. Suddenly, a sky full of broken white butterflies burst out from his body and rushed forward. The whole street was shrouded, and Zhang Yi's bullets touched the white butterflies, forming huge void spheres that swallowed up the white butterflies. The broken butterflies drifted away with the wind, and some floated past Zhang Yi not far away. Zhang Yi could see clearly that they were actually white cards. Countless white cards flew in the air, and then slowly revealed Senbama's huge and pale face. He skillfully played with a deck of cards with both hands, and they fluttered in his hands like butterflies. Don't think that you have left the gambling world. You can beat me in the game. I can take your life in the game, and I can do the same outside of the game. Zhang Yi sneered. You can't beat me outside of the game, and you can't do it outside of the game either. This sentence angered Senbama. His face twisted, and the cards in his hand shot towards Zhang Yi. Each card turned into the sharpest dagger, cutting through the air with a piercing chirping sound. Sunlua Wanxiang. Zhang Yi directly opened 3,000 dimensional doors around him, and countless cards directly sank into his different space, only rippling a little at the door, but could not get half an inch close to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi himself raised a gun, and a huge void vortex emerged behind him. The huge void energy gathered on the wall through his arms, and a terrifying blow broke out. Halberde of destruction. The two guns merged, and a huge void halberd gushed out from the muzzle, cutting through the sky and shooting towards Senbama. Feeling the destructive power contained in it, Senbama's face became even paler. He roared, and the cards in his hand turned into a wave of cards, rising into the sky as if endless, and finally formed a white dragon of cards thousands of meters long, crashing into the black halberd. The collision happened only in an instant, without a thrilling explosion, but just disappeared silently. The white dragon of cards turned into nothingness in an instant, and Sambam watched the huge halberd come in front of him. His eyes were bloodshot, and the halberd of destruction in front of him was infinitely enlarged in his eyes, as if a mountain was pouring down on him. A moment later, Sambam standing on the street disappeared. The street where he stood and the city in the space of tens of thousands of meters behind him were directly wiped out, leaving only a huge halberd-shaped pit, like a scar that will remain in Nash forever. Chapter 1389 Song of Hell. Jang Yi killed Sambam. His body could not withstand Zhang Yi's powerful attack, but his extremely strong origin was still preserved. Zhang Yi did not waste it and used the energy storage tank to collect it. This battle was actually very dangerous. If the person fighting him today was not Zhang Yi, it would be extremely dangerous for anyone else. Even if it was Zhang Yi, if he did not carry a medical alien with him, he would die here. After all, according to the rules of the Devil's Casino, no matter how lucky Zhang Yi is, he will lose his hands and feet, and even his internal organs in the process of gambling. Then, after breaking the gambling, he will inevitably be killed by Sambam. It's a pity that Sambam encountered Zhang Yi, a cheater. After killing Sambam, Zhang Yi still had lingering fears. After the effect of the painkiller wore off, the joints of his hands and feet were aching slightly, and there was a numb feeling for the newly grown flesh and blood. After the effect of adrenaline wore off, he began to feel a strong sense of discomfort. Zhang Yi turned and looked at several other battlefields in the city. The fierce battle was still going on, as if many monsters were fighting each other. At this time, Zhang Yi did not dare to go over to help them. He needed to deal with his own physical problems first. Moreover, no one could guarantee that there would be no stronger strongmen in Nash country. The death of a great general was no joke.
Schwa.
Zhang Yi immediately disappeared from the spot and crossed to the lower area of Nash country. The lower you go, the darker and dirtier it is, and people from the upper class almost never go to such places. Zhang Yi found a safe place, and while letting Zhou Kur help him completely repair his body, he began to try to absorb the essence of Senbamu. This absorption process is usually extremely slow, and even if it is absorbed in a short time, it cannot be completely digested. However, it can still improve strength to a certain extent. Zhang Yi had a premonition in his heart that he must improve his strength as soon as possible, if he wants to enter the Holy Spirit Temple. In another battlefield, Kalijuan faced Lancelot. The entire city had long been reduced to ruins, and there was no living person around, and there was no visible building. Kalijuan stood in the center of the battlefield. He still had that indifferent expression, holding a huge sword in his hand, looking down coldly into the distance. In that direction, Lancelot fell weakly in the ruins. His combat uniform had long been torn to pieces, and blood was flowing, staining the soil and rocks under him red. The two had been fighting fiercely for more than 10 minutes. Lancelot's strength was not weak, but facing the general of the Nash kingdom who made a living by fighting, he still suffered a heavy blow. Kalijuan's strength was too strong. The natural strong physique of the three-eyed people, plus his swordsmanship that he had practiced for hundreds of millions of times, brought pressure to Lancelot that was as terrifying as a continuous storm. There was no fancy, just pure hard power to crush. Kalijuan carried the sword and walked towards Lancelot step by step. Among the bugs, you are considered a relatively powerful existence. I didn't expect that your race could actually possess such power. Oh, is it because of your strong reproductive ability? There are too many, so there will always be some relatively powerful individuals. Kalijuan said slowly, with murderous intent in his eyes. Lancelot raised his head and looked at Kalijuan coldly. Several lines of blood flowed down his forehead and slid down his cheeks, looking hideous and terrifying. Even though he was seriously injured, he was still laughing wantonly. Ha 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 ha. The strong man of the three-eyed tribe will not disappoint me. But do you know? He slowly stood up from the ruins. Although the sword in his hand was already broken, and the shield on his left hand also had cracks, his fighting spirit was still high. Compared to the oppression that person brought to me, You are still far behind." His face was covered with blood, but he still raised the knight's sword in his hand to Caligula with high fighting spirit. Caligula nodded. "Very good. I will give you the honor of a warrior and kill you. Although you are just a bug, you are worthy of my respect." Caligula knew that he could not delay any longer. He had already felt the energy erupting from several other battlefields. Although he did not know why there were so many powerful hairless mice in this world. But as a warrior, the meaning of his existence was to protect the peace of Nash country, to fight, and to kill. He moved, and his extremely fast speed brought up a fierce wind. Where the storm swept, the sonic boom made people's eardrums hurt. His speed was too fast, and Lancelot looked up and saw him approaching. The sword, which was several times larger than his body, swept across, and it only needed to touch his body to turn him into powder in an instant. Lancelot's reaction speed was not slow either, and he quickly raised his sword and hit it directly.
Ping!
The two swords, one large and one small, collided in the air as if they were using an embroidery needle to resist Optimus Prime. Dazzling flames burst out, and powerful energy rushed out in all directions in the form of shock waves. Once again, the surrounding soil that had been beaten into an abyss, the ground sank. More than 10 meters. Caligula had no expression on his face. His attacks came like a flood. The sword wind had long been invisible. The shadow of the sword could not be seen clearly. Only the white murderous aura filled the sky. He attacked too fast. He could swing tens of thousands of attacks every second. Lancelot held the shield in his left hand and the sword in his right hand, and resisted the opponent's attack without fear. Crack! After countless collisions, the protective shield in his left hand finally collapsed completely. Lancelot ignored it and directly held the knight's long sword with both hands. He roared and rushed over to fight with Caligula. Boom! In more than 10 seconds, the two of them fought crazily for countless times, so that Lancelot's body could not withstand Caligula's powerful force and was thrown out fiercely. He fell into the ruins again, and the blood flowing from his body along his arms, calves, and cheeks gradually gathered on the ground into a river. If it were an ordinary person, he would have died long ago with so much blood flowing out. But Lancelot still managed to stand up, with a ferocious and happy smile on his face. He supported the sword that was about to break with both hands and sang loudly, "The Hell Knight who fell into the underworld, dye the flag of the rebellious heaven red with my blood. When the angel's feathers are broken and fall to the dust, I will sing the hymn of the end of the world with my torn throat." Skill, Knight's Hell Song. When he finished chanting, the blood that flowed out actually flowed back into his body in an incredible way. His body seemed to be full of strength again, and his whole state was even stronger than before. Chapter 1390. Sword in the Tree. Caligula stared at Lancelot, who had recovered a lot, but his face was expressionless. As the top alien in Nash country, he began to practice what is called martial arts since he was a child. He has seen many strange schools. It can even be said that he studied this decades earlier than the aliens in the outside world. Whether it is the forbidden technique of increasing strength in a short period of time or the ability to regenerate broken limbs, he will not be surprised by it. In his opinion, these are all fancy things. They are not as good as the sword in his hand. The huge body took firm steps and walked towards Lancelot step by step. From beginning to end, he did not show hatred for Lancelot, and there was only one word, death, in his eyes. Like an indifferent god of death, the mission here is just to kill one person. Lancelot wiped the corner of his mouth. Although he recovered a certain amount of physical strength through Knight's Hell Song, the injuries left by Caligula were real, and there was no way to completely heal them. This powerful three-eyed tribesman made him feel extremely oppressive. He had to admit that he was no match for the man in front of him. "But I've delayed long enough," Lancelot said softly. Caligula held a sword and rushed towards Lancelot. But Lancelot looked into the distance, as if waiting for something to come.
Who?
The sword rolled up a turbulent wind. Before the sword arrived, The terrible sword wind had already cut Lancelot's combat uniform like tens of thousands of knives. Lancelot raised the long sword in his hand again, laughing and fighting fiercely with Caliduin. The damaged sword would have an extra gap every time it collided. Although it was a long sword transformed by supernatural power, it could not withstand such intensive bombardment from the opponent. Crack. After countless crazy attacks, the sword in his hand finally couldn't bear the pressure and was broken directly into two pieces from the middle. Lancelot's body flew backwards quickly with the help of this force. He stood firm in the ruins with difficulty. Caliduin looked at him coldly. As a swordsman, if you don't have your sword anymore, you're already dead. Are you going to continue struggling? Lancelot lowered his head, his body twitching, and slowly, a laugh came from his throat. Ha 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 ha. He raised his head and laughed even more happily. You are really great, but you may not know that I have more than one sword. In the distance, two streams of light approached this side rapidly. They were other members of the Knights of the Round Table. Caliduin had long been aware of their presence, but he didn't care. Lancelot of the Ypsilon class was not his opponent, and the Delta class subordinates couldn't even block his sword. What difference does it make to come here? However, he would not give the enemy a chance, and was ready to kill Lancelot with a long sword in hand, and wipe out other ignorant bugs together. At this time, the two figures had already come near Lancelot. They were Green Knight, Boss, and Pure Knight Egwene. Deputy Captain, take it. Boss shouted, and the next moment his body began to twist and change in the air. He was a plant-type alien, and his ability was called World Tree, which meant that he could transform into a huge tree and summon trees to fight. So his body twisted, and his limbs and torso quickly turned green, turning into a big tree, with vines entwined around it, gradually deforming. But slowly, its shape became more and more weird, and finally it turned into a huge long sword. That's right, a green long sword made of countless vines. Sword in the tree. Lancelot caught the long sword. The vines on the long sword were still waving their arms wildly, and the vines at the end were directly wrapped around Lancelot's arm. The tip of the vine pierced his arm like a needle, connecting the two of them together. On the other side, Pure Knight, Egwene also landed lightly on Lancelot. Her body was rapidly fading away and finally turned into a ball of sticky substance like water, and like a slug, it drilled into Lancelot's combat uniform through the gap. Pure Knight, Egwene, a healing ability user. Ability codename, Pure Water. The purest water can heal all injuries and devour the negative substances in the target's body. This is a pure auxiliary ability user like Zhou Kur. Lancelot now has the blessing of two auxiliary ability users, a Trinity, and his combat effectiveness is immediately greatly improved. This is why he dared to collide head-on with Caliduin, who was stronger than him. Caliduin frowned slightly. He could feel that the momentum of the opponent had changed. The addition of the two auxiliary aliens would increase his pressure a little. But it doesn't matter. Do you think these useless things can help you beat me? Childish bugs. Caliduin was dismissive of this. He moved and appeared in front of Lancelot the next moment. The giant sword chopped down head-on. Lancelot turned his wrist, and the sword in the tree met it head-on. The sword in the tree suddenly expanded and grew dense branches with lush leaves, as if a towering tree appeared in the original place, blocking the sword. Caliduin chopped down with a sword, and although it penetrated into the wood, there was no way to cut it off. The sword in the tree transformed by the Green Knight boss has the toughest wood fiber, and it is the best defense against sharp weapons. The most terrifying thing is that as a plant-type alien, his self-repair ability even far exceeds that of the strengthening alien. Countless green vines sprang out from the sword in the tree, directly entangled the sword, and stretched towards Caliduin. For the first time, a look of surprise appeared on Caliduin's face. He suddenly exerted force, pulled out his sword from the tree, and then quickly retreated hundreds of meters away. Lancelot raised the sword in the tree in his hand, and the sword returned to the shape of a two-handed sword. Lancelot had a warlike and wild smile on his face. This time, it was his turn to take the initiative. Come on. He thrust the sword in the tree into the ground fiercely. The next moment, there was a loud explosion, and the ground in front of him broke apart inch by inch. Huge and sharp vines rushed out from the ground one after another and headed straight for Kalijuan. Kalijuan frowned and dodged the attack of the vines with his huge body. However, the entire battlefield was quickly occupied by the growing green giant trees. Lancelot stepped on a vine, and it sent Lancelot straight into the sky. He descended from the sky, holding a green giant sword, and slashed at Kalijuan head-on.